An incredibly valuable player with the definition of an elite contact hitter, Mark Grace was consistently great throughout his career, and possibly a surprise to some, he became the hit king of the 1990s. So let's look at the underappreciated, sometimes wild career of Mark Grace.
Totally sports-esque. Major league.
After attending high school in California, Mark Grace attended Saddleback College before transferring to San Diego State after not signing with the Twins in 1983 after being selected in the 15th round. He would then be drafted in the 24th round by the Chicago Cubs in 1985. And right away in the minors, he showed his promise, hitting .342 with 95 RBIs and 30 doubles in Single-A over 126 games. Then in 1987 in Double-A, he would hit .333 with 101 RBIs and 30 doubles. And though he slumped to start 1988 in Triple-A, he would be called up at the start of May. It will become a vital part of the late 80s and 90s Cubs, playing 134 games his rookie year, hitting .296 with 23 doubles. His .296 averaged the best amongst rookies, as 4 Cubs finished in the top 10 average with Rafael Palmeiro, Andre Dawson, and Vance Law. The Cubs clearly had a strong core with the addition of Grace going into 1989, as they had a real chance to make it back to the postseason. The Cubs had their second best season in decades after the 1984 season, and Grace went a long way in that, hitting .314 with an .862 OPS, drawing 80 walks with a 4B WAR over 142 games, finishing 4th in both average and on base, winning NL Player of the Month in July, after hitting .347 with 5 home runs, as he would finish 14th in MVP voting. Him along with Ryan Sandberg, Sean Dunston, and the top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting in Dwight Smith and Jerome Walton, along with another rookie named Greg Maddux, helped the Cubs win the NL East. And Grace was by far the MVP of the Cubs' short run. In his first postseason at-bat, Grace would hit a 2-run home run to put the Cubs back in the game after Greg Maddux gave up 3 in the first. He would go on to record 2 more hits in the game and steal a base. But it was not near enough, as the Cubs ended up losing 11-3. But he was just as good in Game 2, again going 3 for 4, with 2 doubles and 4 RBIs, as the Cubs would end up winning this game 9-5 to even the series. And Grace continued to keep hitting, going 2 for 3 in Game 3 with a double, recording a triple and 2 RBIs in Game 4, and again going 2 for 3 in Game 5. The problem being, the Cubs lost all those games by no more than 2. Grace hitting .647 with a 1.800 OPS with 5 extra base hits and 8 RBIs in the 5 games. Kept the Cubs in games almost by himself, but Will Clark and the Giants were just a little better. And while the Cubs regressed in the years after even with their core, Grace continued to consistently be one of the best hitters in the game. He began the 90s by hitting over 300 again at .309, while hitting 32 doubles. And after his worst full season of the 90s in 1991, where he had the most at-bats in the league despite walking 70 times and hitting .273, his prime began in 1992. Over 92 and 93, he would combine for an 8.9B WAR, hitting 76 doubles, 9 triples, and driving in 177 with an 838 OPS. His .325 average in 93 a career high to that point, and only enough to finish 5th in that category. And it was on May 9th of 93 when he would hit for the cycle. That was the most recent cycle by a Cub, until Carson Kelly did it just this year on March 31st. But another part of Grace's game began to shine starting in this time with his defense. He improved mightily after leading the league in errors at first with 17 in 1988, and from 91 to 93, he led the league in putouts for first baseman, along with range factor, leading in assists from 90 to 92, and turning the most double plays in 93, as he would win 2 straight Gold Gloves in 92 and 93, while receiving MVP votes in both years, and making the All-Star team for the first time in 92. And the 2 years following that were cut short some games because of the strike. As I've mentioned multiple times, great teams got cut short in their quest for a title, but great players did as well in the midst of their prime like Grace. After 106 games in 94, Grace was hitting .298 with 23 doubles. If you were to bump that up by 2 points by the end of the season, he would have hit .300 in every season in the 90s aside from 1991. But unfortunately, Grace ended just a little short of 8 straight .300 seasons. Either way, his best season came the next year. Over 143 games, he recorded a career-high 5B WAR, hitting .326 with a career-high OPS at .911, while driving in 92 and hitting the most doubles in the league at 51, topping his teammate Brian McRae, who finished second by 13. This earned him another All-Star appearance and his highest MVP finish at 13th, again finishing 5th in average, while finishing top 10 in slugging for the only time. Actually a little below his average fielding stats from previous years, but still up there, as he won his 3rd Gold Glove in the past 4 years. And throughout the rest of the 90s, Grace would just continue what he was doing. 96 would see him record his highest batting average of his career at .331, while recording 39 doubles, again finishing 4th in average, tough to win the batting title in the time of Mike Piazza, Barry Bonds, and of course Tony Gwynn. Another similar year on defense that again resulted in a Gold Glove. This is 4th in 5 years. In the final 3 years of the 90s, he would record a 10.6B WAR, hit .312 with an .872 OPS, hitting 46 home runs, and hitting 115 doubles. 1999 seeing him hit 40 doubles for the second time, with 1997 seeing his last All-Star appearance, and 1998 seeing him make the playoffs for the last time with the Cubs. That of course being the year Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire had the home run chase, with a guy like Grace being a nice contrast to a guy who hit a casual 193 home runs over 3 seasons. Mark McGwire, however, won that chase, but the Cubs won the wild card, and the playoffs this time did not go near as good for Grace, going just 1 for 12 as the Cubs were swept by the Braves. He would play one more season for the Cubs, another 3B WAR season with 41 doubles, but this season ended his streak of 300 seasons at 5, as he would hit 280. Again, going back to 94, that streak would have been 8, but 2000 would end up being his last season in Chicago. The Cubs declining to offer him salary arbitration, Grace saying the Cubs would have wanted him back, and they would have wanted to win if he were to come back. And his new team was the Arizona Diamondbacks. In just their 4th year of existence, the Diamondbacks quickly became contenders, with Randy Johnson, Curt Schilling leading the rotation, and Luis Gonzalez being the power source. They won the NL West in 2000, and after losing the NLDS, they wanted to come back, and Grace was a perfect addition. In his first year not in a Cubs uniform, he posted a WAR of 2.4, recording 31 doubles, hitting .298 with an .852 OPS. Grace not a power hitter especially typical of a first baseman, but this was his 5th straight season with double-digit home runs. His 15 home runs that year, only 58 less than the home run king Barry Bonds. But Grace helped the Diamondbacks win the NL West for the 2nd straight year, and if there's anything a postseason team wants, it's a veteran. Though Grace didn't have a massive sample size, he had shown to be a good postseason player, and he would have his moments here. In Game 1 of the NLDS against the Cardinals, he went back to his 1989 ways by going 2 for 3 with a double, as the Diamondbacks took Game 1. He only got one more hit for the rest of the series, and he didn't play Game 4. But a little preview of things to come, Tony Womack would hit a walk-off single in the bottom of the 9th to win the series. And the NLCS is really where Grace has made his mark. Going against the Braves, he would record a hit in all 5 games, scoring 1 run, that being in Game 5, which was the difference in a 1-run clinching game to give the Diamondbacks the pennant. In his 10 career NLCS games, he recorded a hit in every single one. He had 5 extra base hits including a home run, driving in 9 with 4 runs. With this .515 average the best for any player in history who played at least 10 NLCS games. Limited sample, but Grace absolutely made the most of his opportunities here. And the Diamondbacks would be playing the 3-time defending champions in the New York Yankees in the World Series, a team Grace had never played in his 14 years. Obviously different rules with interleague causing this. And his first game against them, his first and only hit was a double that was a part of the barrage, driving in 2 on the double that made things 9-1, which would be the final score. The Diamondbacks would take Game 2 and lost Game 3 in New York. Grace not recording a hit in those 2 games, but in his second at-bat of Game 4, down 1-0, he would hit a solo home run off Orlando Hernandez, which would tie the game, this being the only run scored off Hernandez. That home run looked to be huge when the Diamondbacks were on their way to a win with a 2-run lead in the 9th with 2 outs, but then Tino Martinez hit the massive 2-run tying home run. Then the next inning, Derek Jeter would hit a walk-off home run. Almost the same situation playing out the next night in a hitless game for Grace that saw a bottom of the 9th tying home run, then a walk-off in extra innings. But the series wasn't over, and Grace had to look on in Game 6 as he was not in the lineup. But there was never a doubt as the Diamondbacks won 15-2, setting up for the biggest game of Grace's life, and he would show up. His first 2 at-bats seeing him record singles in the 2nd and 4th off Roger Clemens, that did not result in anything, but the Diamondbacks took a 1-0 lead in the 6th with Danny Bautista's double. But after Alfonso Soriano's home run in the 8th, the Yankees would take the lead. And after Danny Bautista struck out to end the 8th off Mariano Rivera, that meant Grace was leading off the bottom of the 9th in a 2-1 game against the greatest closer of all time in Game 7 of the World Series. And after taking a pitch, he would hit a single, this being one of those hits that isn't really remembered, but it was absolutely massive. The first out of the 9th always being important, and Rivera couldn't get it. And best for Grace, as he didn't have to run, ending his season the best way possible. And this was a great decision, as Rivera ended up making a throwing error on the bunt attempt, DeLucci's speed playing a part there. He would make the play on the next attempt, but then Tony Womack would have one of the most clutch hits in history with a double to tie the game, adding 50% to the championship win probability. Craig Counsell would then be hit by a pitch, and of course, Luis Gonzalez would hit a bloop single to win the World Series. Given the circumstances, one of the greatest rallies in MLB history, all started by a single from Mark Grace to give himself a World Series ring. Grace played 2 more seasons with the Diamondbacks with clear regression, hitting just .252 in 2002, still helping the Diamondbacks win the NL West again. An interesting tidbit, in late September in a game the Dodgers were beating the Diamondbacks by 17, Grace took the mound and would give up 1 hit, and it was actually the first home run of David Ross's career, a real contrast to his last being off Andrew Miller in Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. Grace made his final playoff appearance, going 1 for 4 in the 2 games he played in a 3-game sweep by the Cardinals. 2003 was him posted negative WAR for the first time, as he only played 66 games. And obvious that it was time, he decided to retire. In a career that saw him play 2,245 games over 16 years, record 2,445 hits, 511 doubles, 173 home runs, recording a 46.4 WAR with a 303 average and an 825 OPS, winning 4 Gold Gloves, making 3 All-Star teams, and looking at his era, in the full decade that he played in, that being the 1990s, he was the hit king, with 1,754, ahead of Rafael Palmeiro, Greg Biggio, Tony Gwynn, Cal Ripken Jr., and Paul Molitor, who would all have 3,000 hits. Not all in their prime, but says a lot nonetheless. He also led in doubles, while finishing top 10 in average and sac flies. Not a name you immediately think of when you think of great 90s players, especially with all the power, but he's definitely up there. He would, however, only receive 4% in his first ballot. It's hard to say Grace is a Hall of Famer, really in that class of very good, but he still deserved more recognition, still deservedly making the Cubs Hall of Fame, finishing top 5 in Cubs history in games played, hits, doubles, total bases, runs, extra base hits, and more. And of the hit kings by decade, aside from the 2010s, only Mark Grace and Pete Rose are not in the Hall of Fame. And with the recent news, it could only be Mark Grace. He's really a player whose value could go unnoticed, with a real gene for the clutch. Noted that he has the highest clutch rating by WPA in the entire 1990s, helped by the fact that he was also a great defender. That lack of power hurting his case against other first basemen that traditionally has numerous power hitters, but the ability to defend, get on base, and provide timely hits would define his career. You can pretty much summarize his career with his hit in Game 7 of the 2001 World Series, a leadoff single at the bottom of the 9th in a 1-run game against the greatest closer of all time. It goes unnoticed in the end, but it's that little thing that led to the comeback. In a career that was marked by small ball and great defense, he fell under the radar among some of his peers. Being the hit king of the 1990s, he must have rarely had any slumps. But if he ever did fall into a slump, he knew how to get out of that slump. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing for new videos every week. Thank you.